We're Brianna and Keely, and you're listening to the Where We Live podcast, where we discuss all things home.
You'll hear from us on residential real estate, the process of buying and selling a home, design trends, entrepreneurship, faith, and much more. In this episode, let's discuss smart home features. While many of us grew up thinking that a smart home was only for the Jetsons, today many of us depend on smart features in our day-to-day lives. Whether it's a thermostat that knows when you're home, a lock that tells you when you left the house open, or light bulbs that turn on just when you need them to, there's no question these features are becoming more prevalent and essential to homes today.
You can now go crazy adding technology and features like these to every aspect of your life. However, when it comes to real estate, the important question is how much does it matter to buyers? Which features add value down the road and which are just nice to have today? So listen up, but be warned, this episode may cause you to want to buy some new smart home tech. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
I feel like talking about a smart home always sounds like we're discussing the space age. Maybe that's just being a child of the 90s. It always feels very futuristic to me.
Why is that? I think that's probably for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, we love these features. I feel like they make things so much easier. We were chatting just before filming this episode, and I feel like it's never ending what you can add.
Yeah, this is true. Yep. So let's start out by explaining what is a smart home. Maybe that's why we think it's so futuristic.
So the technical definition of a smart home is it is a residence equipped with devices that automate tasks that are normally handled by humans. So some are built into the structure of the house, some are added later, and homeowners operate them with apps, voice command, automations, or by using artificial intelligence.
So our local realtor association defines a smart home as having 3 or more of these smart features that are tech-enabled.
Yeah, and even if you don't meet the technical definition of a smart home, you may have, 1 or 2 smart features in your house, and you're still having this stuff in your day-to-day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it still benefits you.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to features that would stay with the property when your house is sold, right? Because that's what we talk about on this podcast most often is houses being purchased and sold. And what of that do I get to take with me to the next house and what stays with the home? So if you think about it as really anything that's going to require a tool to be removed should stay with the home. So like cameras, a smart doorbell, a thermostat, smart deadbolts. Those are things that stay with the house. That also would include any appliances that are smart, with the exception of the refrigerator and washer and dryer, at least here in Texas. Refrigerator, washer, and dryer are appliances that typically do not convey with the property.
So that's a good news. If you have the fridge that plays the music and shows you Facebook, you get to keep that. You can take that with you to your next house. That thing is amazing. So I thought we'd go over a little bit of our favorite ones. We'd highlight them. This is where you get to add to your shopping list if you'd like. First, I think, is the Nest thermostat. I think this is actually one of the most practical items that you can get for your house and the one that's going to tangibly save you a lot of money. You can set it to know when you're out of the house, which I think is really important, and set a schedule so it's a different temperature at night and then during the day, depending on kind of when you're in and out and your temperature preferences. Mine alerts me when I can be saving the most money, and so I always like that, where I can choose to crank it up a couple degrees because it's really expensive at that time. So I also really appreciate it enables total laziness. So if you're in bed at night and the temperature is not right, you can just fix it right from your phone in your bed.
Or maybe if you went on vacation and forgot to turn the thermostat down, well, that's true. You don't have to. It just does it for you.
It is so nice.
It knows that you're gone.
Yeah, absolutely. But when we're coming home from vacation, a lot of times in the car ride home, we'll set it up, right? Mm-hmm. So it can start warming or cooling in the way that we want when we get home.
It's not smart enough to know that you're on your way home.
It's not that creepy yet. No, there's a fine line between smart and creepy.
One of my favorite features is a Nest camera, because this is my most heavily used smart feature in my house. So you can add a camera to any room or space. You could even put them outdoors. We have several in our home. You'll get a notification sent to your phone if you want to. This is an option. If the camera detects movement or a person, you can speak two-way through the microphone on your phone into the room where the camera is. So I use that well, not often, but if I'm out at work or out and about, I do often use it to look and see what my girls are doing if they're home with the nanny. Sometimes I'll use it to talk to them through there too, no matter where I am. Or if I'm just downstairs, they're upstairs and it's bedtime and they're out of bed, I use that to tell them to get back into bed. It is bedtime.
The voice of God.
Yes. Yeah, basically. We didn't grow up with that confusion. Where's this voice coming from? You can also enable, this is really cool, the away assist, so that certain cameras in your house turn on only when you leave the house. So these are cameras you're using more for like a security system rather than a nanny cam. If you don't care whether you're recording while you're in the house, maybe you don't want it to be recording while you're in the house, but you do want it to be recording while you're out of the house for security purposes, it can automatically do that. It knows when you're home and when you're not, which makes it super great for vacations. Or as I already mentioned, in the baby room, we've used this as basically a baby monitor since day one. We also have just a standard little audio so that we know to look, but this has been our baby monitor.
Love it. That's awesome. I think one of my favorites is the smart light bulbs, and there's a lot of different brands that make these now, but it's my favorite for the front porch. There's no more going and turning off this on and off the switch all the time. You can absolutely set it that it knows when it's dusk and turns on at night, and you can set a time when you want it to shut off. I just absolutely love that. It's also really nice to make sure that you come home and there's some light on, right? So like a lamp comes on, very good for security when you're out of town. People kind of think that people are home because the lights are going on and off. So huge fan of the smart light bulb, and then you can kind of dim it or brighten it depending on the mood that you need there or how much light you need to read. So very, very helpful. One that I have seen actually in a few homes that we've helped people buy recently, and it's totally on my list for this year, is the Reikio Smart Sprinkler System. And so this replaces your sprinkler box in your house. It automatically turns the system off if it's raining, or if it was raining today, like it kind of tells you the preferred time to water your lawn. You can control it remotely, which is just super handy if you're away from home and you realize you forgot to turn it back on. Mine is very old school and manual. And so I love the idea that it would predict the weather and know all of that and just take care of that for me, because I feel like that's a very manual task.
Okay, so we've talked through some of our favorites and your wish list of your sprinkler system.
Adulting.
Adulting. Let's go through some pros and cons, starting, of course, with the pros of smart home features. Obviously, smart home features can make remote access to your home very easy. There are deadbolts that you can control with your phone. Actually, I've seen this in real estate where some sellers will just press the button from their phone from out of state to let me into their house.
Wow.
Right?
That's amazing.
Or my neighbors have a smart garage door opener, and same thing. We needed to borrow a ladder, and they were out of town. They just opened the garage door for us to hop in and borrow a ladder. Remote access.
We're living in the future.
Yep. In the Jetsons city.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I think the big thing for me is that it reduces the amount of small tasks you need to do every day. So like the minutia that just is something else that you need to remember. Turn on the porch light, set the thermostat, set the sprinkler system, all of that. It's so nice to get that just off your plate and out of your mind. I feel like it's mental clutter that just doesn't need to be there, and this can solve that for you. And it can be a huge money saver. So electricity-wise, I told you how much I love my thermostat. It has saved us a ton of money versus what we used to pay in electricity. Water, your sprinkler system is a huge water user, and so if you don't need to be using that, that is a big money saver. And of course, it can greatly increase your security and your peace of mind when you are away from home, right? Whether knowing if that front door was opened or an alarm going off because you have a smart alarm system, or seeing on a camera if somebody came into your house or not, or if your kids woke up in the middle of the night and left their room. You can know exactly what happened. Okay, so the cons. Let's talk about the cons now that we've walked through some of the great pros, because with everything, there are still definitely, unfortunately, cons to these smart features. Absolutely. I think the biggest one is that they can cost quite a bit. And this is why we get asked about them as realtors, is because this can be a major investment. I think the problem is, and we see this with our cars, with our phones, with our computers, the technology is ever changing. And so what you may install now is probably not going to be what's popular when you go to sell your house, and you may not know the timeline there. So the tech is just going to constantly be being updated, and really, as soon as you install it, it's going out of date, right? And so that's just part of living in the technology-capable world.
Probably the biggest con to technology is the possibility of hackers. So you need to make sure that all of your passwords are secure. If there is an option for two-factor authentication, use it. I'm going to say especially with camera-related apps. So I have a story to share with you. When my youngest daughter, Eva, was an infant, not newborn, but infant, she had some sleep issues. So I was sleeping with her. We were up in the guest room, and remember, I used the cameras as like a baby monitor. Plus, she had some extra health issues, so we definitely wanted to have camera footage of her overnight. And so we're side by side in a king bed. She's in her own little protected thing, so there's no sleep issues there. But a camera on us. And remember how I also said that with the cameras you can do two-way. You can talk two-way through the microphone on your phone. So the voice of God can come into the room that you're in. Well, that happened in the middle of the night. I don't know, 3 a.m. It woke me up. Like, I sat straight up. I heard something going on. It was music. It was odd music. And when you're woken up from like a deep slumber, it takes you a while to understand what is happening, what's going on. And my husband would pop into the camera every now and then to check on us and make sure we're doing okay. And so I assumed, oh, that was him. So I go back to sleep, and then it hits me. That wasn't him. He wouldn't be playing this weird, odd music. So I call him, and I'm like, tell me that was you. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, on the camera, just now. Tell me that was you. That was you. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, get up here right now. And we like ripped the camera out of the wall. We were so paranoid. We ripped the internet out.
That's scary.
Shut this house down.
Yes.
Somebody is watching my baby and I sleeping. And so we went back and reviewed the footage. When you press the microphone button and go in to speak, the footage that you hear played back goes silent. So like if you just play it, you can hear like, white noise or whatever's going on in the room. And then when you press the button, that white noise disappears. Well, that happened. Somebody had pressed the button. It was not my husband. So quite creepy. What I learned is we had not had that two-factor authentication enabled. So that has been enabled now. I now feel totally fine and secure. It was a while before we turned the cameras back on, and I just felt violated. Somebody else was in my house watching me while I'm asleep. So I feel totally safe now that we have the two-factor authentication. So please go do yourself a favor and go check and make sure that you have that enabled. If you have cameras or basically cameras, any other thing that somebody could hack into and breach your privacy, please check it out.
Yeah. And I think that's real, right? Like, that's the real peril of it. And you got to be eyes wide open when you're doing this kind of tech. So when it comes to real estate, there were a lot of privacy concerns actually as well. So before this year, there was no official policy in terms of the Texas real estate contract regarding password and app-dependent features of homes. So there were more than a few creepy stories about sellers who still had access to the camera. Some were like very innocent. They were like, oh, I like your new landscaping. And they're like, how did you see that? You live out of state. Like a creepy, still watching the doorbell. But other things where like the deal was very contentious and they really like did not like each other. And so there was someone that was setting the thermostat at like 85 in the summer, they were like basically like heating them up in the middle of the house, like in the middle of the summer, because they still had access to the thermostat. So the contract was updated in April. The seller signs and legally agrees to uninstall those features and pass on any relevant information to the buyers as part of the real estate process. So that's really, really, really good news. As a buyer, I mean, this is going to be the modern equivalent of changing the locks or like changing the code to your security system when you buy a new house. Like, most apps are going to give you the option to log out all devices. So make sure that anybody who ever had access to it is logged out, and then change the password. It just needs to be part of the rhythm of buying a new house, is understanding this new tech, making sure that it's secure, and that it's going to really function well for your family.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So let's talk about which ones are worth the money.
Yeah.
And that's we mentioned already in this episode. That's what we get asked quite often because people want to know, should I invest this or should I not? And so really this boils down to and completely depends on number one, how long do you think you're going to stay in your home? If this is your forever home, then yes, I think it's probably worth the money. But remember, technology is always changing. There's no way to predict what will be popular in 10 years. Newsflash, it's probably safe to say that any technology popular right now is going to be old news in 10 years. So it's really the choices that you're making are for conveniences to you. And if you want to not have to turn your porch light on and off, then yes, you get that smart bulb, but don't do it because it's going to help your house sell for more money or for faster. It's not going to make a huge impact on the value of your home. I would say really the only time that it would, right, is if it's like over the top. It's like the smartest home ever known to man should be featured in a magazine, and that would be something neat. But even then, Keely, would you say that that's probably still so expensive they might not even recoup everything that was spent?
I think that's right. I think when you got to think about smart home features, you really can't think about resale. I think you have to think about what's right for you. You're not installing that stuff for the future buyer. I just sold a beautiful multi-million-dollar home, okay? Has like a whole home sound system. It goes outside, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure when it was put in, right? It was built in the early 2000s. When this sound system was put in, I'm sure it was the top of the line, everything going on. Like you could connect an iPod to it, okay? So I bought an adapter on Amazon thinking, okay, I can adapt that little 10-pin iPod thing to my phone. Well, no, it doesn't recognize it, right? So that's just part of it, right? It may not even update or adapt. So you can still play the radio, you can still play your CDs, but you've just got to realize these things are going to age. So just be aware of what that is. And if you're selling your house, if there's something you just would rather take with you, just make sure that you remove that before you put your house on the market. Mm-hmm. So we hope you learn more about smart home tech and how it applies to real estate today. We're already starting our list for Black Friday, and we would love to hear from you. Let us know which features we missed that are your favorites.
And if you ever have any specific question about a feature that you're considering adding to your home, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thanks for joining us today.
That wraps up another episode of the Where We Live podcast. We want to hear which topics interest you most for our upcoming shows.
Head on over to wherewelivepodcast.com to continue the conversation in our Facebook group, read our blog, and connect with us. Thanks for tuning in.